Cool. Hi everyone. So I am super excited to show you guys this because I happened to get my hands on a translated copy of Eumsik Dimibang. And for those food nerds and food historians out there, you guys will know that this is supposedly the oldest known cookbook that was written in Korean. They have found older cookbooks, but usually it was written in Chinese. And this one is also apparently the first one in Asia that was written by a woman. I think we all know it's probably there's probably some cookbooks in the past that had been written by women before, but they probably had to go under, a different name. Oh, my brother wrote it, or, like my husband wrote it or something. Something like that. So this cookbook right here was written by Lady Zhang, who was a noble woman living around the 1600s. And so this book was published in 1670. So, the recipes in here are between 350 to 400 years old. So I was just going to do a recipe from it today, but if you guys want kind of a full overview of the book, we can dive in a little bit more to each of the sections. Obviously it's not vegan, but the culinarian in me and in a lot of you guys who watch, I love reading about historical cookbooks and historical methods, why were certain foods eaten, and a lot of the times it has to do with geography, it has to do with happy accidents, it has to do with famine, it has to do with poverty. The best foods come from kind of these types of things. So if you guys want to see kind of more of an in-depth review of this book, just let me know. But today we're going to do literally a 350-year-old Mandu Korean dumpling recipe. So it's interesting how the book is formulated, because if you had seen the the oatmeal sausage recipe that I did from the World War II cookbooks, the way that cookbooks were written in the past is that they assume you already know how to cook. So a lot of it's just written in paragraphs. It's not written in steps. They don't really kind of overstate things for you. If it was just make dumpling wrappers, they'll just say make dumpling wrappers with wheat and flour, and they won't give you a specific amount. So that's kind of what we're working with today. I'm gonna read you guys the instructions first, but it is written in Korean. There's an English translation, there's a Japanese translation, and then there's also Chinese translation as well. And I'll tell you why that's important in a bit. So to start off with, it says, prepare buckwheat powder by passing it through a fine cloth ramie fabric and silk, and then boil it to be thick. Then knead it and make hazelnut-sized balls, and then it goes on to the stuffing. So that is the instruction that we're getting for how to make the dumpling wrappers, okay? So what I have here is some buckwheat that I've ground up into a fine powder. So I took a cup of buckwheat, something in here. I took a cup of buckwheat and I ground it up. And we don't have a fine silk fabric, because I don't think that would work. Because I don't really have that. So I found something that's kind of a very old sieve, and we're gonna work through that. It's interesting because all of these things, they were all done by hand. So there was no Vitamix to help them grind the buckwheat. Everything is hard. Everything was hard to do. I have little pieces here. I might put that back in afterwards. Hold on. So if you guys saw the khao lao lao recipe, the oatmeal noodles recipe that I made for Noodle Week, I'm guessing that this is somewhat similar, because with oatmeal, it also doesn't have any gluten, but we were able to kind of roll out noodles because we added boiling water to the, because we added boiling water to the oatmeal, and so that kind of thickened up the starches. So much stuff here. That proportion was 1-to-1. It was 1 cup of oatmeal to 1 cup of water. So I have a cup of water here. It's cold because this book tells me to boil it first. I think what I'll do is add about maybe 3/4 of a cup, and then we're gonna put it on the stove, and then I'm gonna see how it looks like, and then I don't know, hopefully something comes of it. So okay, so I'm just gonna mix it and make sure that it's nice and smooth before it gets to boiling stage. This actually looks very thick, so I'm gonna add the rest of the water. Probably should not have started the fire yet. Okay, just get it nice and smooth before we cook it. So I guess I'm gonna do like a medium flame and then slowly kind of just thicken it, and then we'll see what happens. I think I've just been here for about 1.5 to 2 minutes on medium heat. And you can see what has happened is it's just formed a dough ball. So I think I want to make sure all areas have been heated, but I think I'll just shut this off because it looks like you could roll it out at this point. So I think what I'm gonna do with the dumpling wrappers is, just from experience of working with gluten-free doughs, I'm going to let it rest first, just so that everything can get hydrated, the starches can do its thickening magic. So we're just gonna leave that there first, and then we can deal with the filling, and then maybe the seasoning sauce that it comes with too. So prepare the stuffing as follow. Boil radish to become tender and mince it fine. Then mince raw and soft pheasant meat and fry with oil and soy sauce and season with pepper and Chinese pepper. They tend to use pheasant meat because beef was actually quite coveted, just because cows did a lot of work in the farms and the fields, and so they were very valuable animals. So they tended to use pheasant meat. And then I think that there were like different kind of health reasons for pheasant meat as well. The brilliant thing though about us vegans is that you can go and just find some like soy mince or like meat crumbles anywhere in the grocery store these days. They're usually located in the frozen food aisle. You can use TVP, you can use lentils, you can use crumbled up, I don't know, tofu, whatever kind of protein that you guys work with. First, I guess boil radish until it becomes tender, and then mince until it's fine. I'll be annoying here. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I like to grate. Let's see, just cut this. I have my radish right here. It is not a Korean radish, but you can substitute probably with a daikon radish or mooli, as it's called in the UK. So I think instead of boiling it and then mincing it, I'm just gonna kind of mince it first. So I'm just gonna run it through a grater. The whole table is shaking. Okay, so that was maybe about 1/2 of a fairly big radish, because I'm just looking at, I just used about 1/2 cup of like meat crumbles, so I think that should be fine. I'm gonna let the radishes do its thing on the side just for a little bit, let it release some of the water. I'm gonna deal with the pheasant meat, fry in oil, and then add in the soy sauce and season with pepper and Chinese pepper. So that is why it was really important to know that there was a Chinese translation as well, is because I didn't totally understand what they meant by pepper and Chinese pepper. So the red and green peppers that Koreans typically use didn't become available to Korea until about like 1615. So there's not really use of the, like the red and green peppers in this book. in terms of pepper and then Chinese pepper, I took a look at the Chinese translation, and what it translated into was essentially like black pepper, and then Chinese pepper was actually Sichuan pepper, so Sichuan peppercorns. So I have that, we will be using that. Okay, so just put a little bit of oil in your pan. This is a non-stick, so I'm just gonna put in the meat. It says to season with some soy sauce. So there's this, but then there's also the radish that you have to worry about later. So let's go with like maybe a teaspoon of soy sauce first. Sprinkling of Sichuan peppercorn or ground Sichuan pepper, and then a little bit of just black pepper. Okay, so we have our radishes here. I think what I'm gonna do is just gonna squeeze out some of the liquid first, and then it'll continue kind of dehydrating a bit. Into the mix. Okay, so obviously the way that you would gauge seasoning to a recipe that doesn't have, you know, specific amounts is you always taste. Like good chefs always taste as they go. So that was 1 teaspoon of soy sauce. I'd say that was definitely not enough. So I'm just gonna put a little bit more. You can put in whatever, so I'll read you guys, hold on. If you don't have pheasant meat, beef will do, mince it, and then after you mince it, you can add in pyogo mushrooms, pine mushrooms, mana, lichen, will be good stuffing. So I mean, it's as you wish for this stuffing. So I have this right here. We're just gonna let it cool before we do the stuffing. So let it cool over here. Okay, so sauce time. The sauce is really easy. So while steaming, serve it with soy sauce mixed with vinegar and ginger juice. And that's pretty cool because, here, soy sauce, ginger, vinegar. It's especially cool because today, Chinese restaurants do it, or like Korean restaurants do it, they still do that. So I have some soy sauce, this is some rice wine vinegar, and then this is just some ginger juice that I grated. Yeah, it's just neat because like it's been done this way for a really long time, so. Very pungent. I would add a little bit of water to it, but that is good. So I'm gonna put that to the side, and I think, like, okay, yeah, I think it's ready. So let's start putting the dumplings together. So that is done resting. It is dry or is it not? So this is another interesting thing is like in the English translation, it does not say anything about like, it just says boil the wrapper until they're thick and then knead it and make hazelnut sized balls. Whereas in the Chinese translation, it says pound and then make it into hazelnut sized balls. So, I mean, I guess pounding and kneading are the same things, but I'm just wondering, potentially pounding may make it even like smoother. So we'll do that. It's dry, it's on the verge of being dry, so I may add a little bit more. Let me just take this out. I may add a little bit more water, but maybe after the kneading and the pounding. Be careful of your fingers. I'm just thinking pounding might be a little bit different because, like, you know, when they make mochi, they always pound the rice. Whereas I feel like they could always knead it, but they always choose to kind of pound it, so. Of water. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Coming together. Dip this into water. I think I saw it on like a BBC special or something, or I might have seen it on a mochi special. They just like dip it in water so that the stick doesn't stick. And then that kind of adds. They probably have these shows in Korea, but like in England, they really love their history here, which is super cool. And they have a lot of like reenactments on TV of just like, you know, like recipes or like how you like made yarn in the old days. And I kind of wish that there was like an English language show where it would show me how, you know, like how did the Chinese like make their food in the palaces, or the, you know, like the Koreans. I'm sure that they have that already. Okay, so now it's in a stage where it's definitely not sticking to me anymore, and it's a little bit kind of rubbery. So it says to knead it and then make hazelnut-sized balls. So hazelnut, Ferrero Rocher, okay. We'll just do this. That's good. Probably best to keep this covered while you do it, because I do have a feeling like it feels like it could dry out. Let's see, 1 cup of the buckwheat makes about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. These kind of look big, but I mean, they're definitely bigger than they're definitely bigger than hazelnuts. I bet it like makes closer to 20, but and I would definitely at least double the filling if it was for 20 dumplings. So I'm just gonna make a couple. I don't know if I'll make all of it right here. Get it into a ball first so that'll be easier to roll out into a disc. Does it say anything about the rolling? No, it doesn't. So we are on our own for this. I think, by the way, if you guys happen to like this t-shirt, it is, it's done by different artists, and there's a lot of different kinds of it, but it's an End Youth Homelessness t-shirt, and the proceeds go to Centrepoint, which is an organization based in London. But they have really cool shirts, and they teamed up with some really amazing artists to do different shirts like this. So if you guys like what you see, there's that. So all right, there are the balls. Keep them covered. I have my rolling pin here. Probably should, I don't have more buckwheat flour, but have a little buckwheat flour on the side in case. I think we'll do it. Okay. Am I nervous? A little bit. I think this is okay. I'll just rub a little bit of this here. I'll just close this because it doesn't really say anything else. Anyways, so put that on the side. So I'm gonna see if I can do what I usually do, which is get the outside edges a bit thinner than the center, which I totally can actually. This reminds me a little bit of the clear dumpling wrapper dough. If you guys have the vegan dim sum cookbook. It also has kind of like a gluten-free clear wrapper dough. Okay. Fill it with about a tablespoon of filling. Let's just do that. And then I don't know if crimping's gonna work for this. Kind of. Okay. It'll be very rustic looking. So something like that. What you can do afterwards is the edges were a bit rough, but because it doesn't have any gluten in it, you can it's a little bit like putty, where you can just kind of make it all pretty and fold it and get it all straight again. So that is this. Thought I should do this one more time for you guys, for anybody who's new to the channel, the way that we do our dumplings. So you get your dumpling ball like this. Just gonna put in a little bit of starch in case it sticks, but this dough looks pretty good already. And I basically just roll it out into a circular disc first. So in general, like a medium-sized dumpling, I get it to about something like a 3 to 4 inch diameter disc like this. And then what I do is usually it works better with a smaller rolling pin, but I take a rolling pin and I just focus on kind of like the outer ½ inch, and I just roll that bit. So I'm just rolling the edge so that the edge is slightly thinner than the center. And so what that does is the center now has a bit more thickness, so that protects it against, like, let's say, any wet fillings that you might have. So put that there. And then the thinner kind of outsides make it easier to, like, if you were to do something that's like very decorative pleating, usually like something that's thinner and more delicate, you can bend it and shape it a little bit better. But yeah, for a dough like this, it seems to just stick, so you don't need any like water or anything additional. I'm just doing a pleat on one side. So anytime you're working with something gluten-free, you can essentially, like, it's like putty. So you can essentially just like pinch it back together, like if there's a hole, or if the dumpling like looks like it has jaggedy edges, you can just like kind of smush it down to make it like straighter and neater. And so I just plop it down like this. I bring the little edges in a little bit because it's supposed to mimic a gold nugget, and then voila, there you go, a dumpling. Okay, so I'm just going to steam these guys for 10 to 12 minutes. Everything's cooked, but I think you're just warming it up, getting everything to mesh together. So 10 to 12 minutes on like high. Okay, so it's been 12 minutes. The alarm just went off. So let's do a taste test because you guys are always asking me to do taste tests, and yeah, I never really do it because I always tell you that I'm a mess after I cook, and indeed that is true. I would say that the dumplings look very similar to before, only the buckwheat has actually turned more of like a grayish purple color after it's been steamed for a bit. So smell-wise, very, very little smell, so not that much at all. So I'm gonna try it on its own first, and then afterwards I'm gonna try it with the dipping sauce. It actually has enough flavor on its own because the daikon radish, if you guys have cooked with that before, that has like a very kind of deep aroma. I always think that it's very, very savory, so you get that. And then you get more or less, the peppers. And Sichuan peppercorn is quite nice because it has that kind of mala numbing sensation. So, like, I know it's not pheasant. I've never had pheasant before. I imagine it's quite gamey because it was probably wild pheasant back then. But even like by itself, like you could add so much more things. Like you could add garlic, you could add a little bit of sugar, like you could add so many more things, but just like three basic ingredients in here, it's really, really good. How does the dumpling wrapper taste? Very much like the oatmeal noodles. So it tastes like pasta. It tastes like as if you had rolled out some lasagna pasta and then you just wrapped it around this. That's really how it tastes. I didn't even try it with the sauce yet, so let's do that. With the sauce, it's quite nice just because it has the vinegar in it, and I always think that the sourness from the vinegar picks up everything and just like brightens up all of the flavors, which is nice to this. But like I told you before, like just the meat crumbles, I just think are kind of like on the side. It's like additional texture. It doesn't really do that much. The daikon radish provides like a bit of crunch, but also like that really like deep kind of like radishy aroma that you guys get. And then you have the peppers are nice because it's a little bit kind of like pepper spicy, but then you also get that like numbing spice as well, and it's just like gently seasoned with soy sauce. So it's very simple, but it's very good. Okay, well that is it for me, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this recipe from Eumsik Dimibang. Like I had mentioned before, if you guys want me to just do like a run through of this whole book, go through the different sections with you guys, talk a little bit about the research that I have done on the book as well, let me know. We'll talk about the different recipes. One thing that's quite like funny and cool is there's about 150 different recipes in this book, but like 50 of them are dedicated to like wine and alcohol making. So the Koreans definitely live up to their reputation of being like the Irish of Asia. But a very, very interesting book, so maybe you guys would want to see that. But yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed this dumpling recipe as well. I know I did, because I really like recipes with a story, because otherwise you're just like making recipes over and over again and it kind of loses its point. But this one is pretty neat then, and yeah. Hope you guys all enjoyed this. I will see you guys again all real soon. Leave me some comments on, you know, what else you'd like to see for the new year. Visit the Patreon. There's a section for recipe suggestions there as well, and I'm actually going to be doing some stuff that people have been asking me to do. So yeah, visit me on a bunch of other things, social media, etc., etc. And yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed this recipe, and I will see you guys all again real soon. Okay, bye.